We continue learning workbook page 126 by solving a problem. Use the quadratic formula to solve 2/7 m squared plus 1/7 m equals 10/7. Hint, clear the fractions first. Okay, so whenever there's a hint in a problem, you should pay attention to it and follow its advice. It's there to make the problem easier for you. We want to clear the fractions. How do we do that? To clear fractions, identify the least common denominator of all fractions in your entire equation. Well, in this case, every one of my denominators is 7, so the least common denominator would be 7. Multiply both sides of your equation by the least common denominator. Okay, now on the right-hand side, this is actually very easy. 7 is the same as 7 over 1. The 7 up top cancels with the 7 down below. They both turn into the number 1. Anything times 1 is itself, anything divided by 1 is itself, so I just get 10. On the left side, I have to use the distributive property. Distribute the 7 here and here. Now think about what happens when you do that. This 7 is the same as 7 over 1, and when you distribute this to this, these two fractions get multiplied. The 7's cancel, leaving you just the 2 and the m squared. So we get 2m squared. When the 7 is distributed here, these 7's cancel, leaving you just 1m, so I have plus 1m. Now you can write plus m equals 10, or you can write plus 1m equals 10, whatever makes it easier for you. This is not our final answer, so if you want to put this one here, you can. All right, so now we've cleared the fractions. Before you can use the quadratic formula, you have to make your equation look like the quadratic equation. The quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That means the terms are in descending order, and the number on the other side is 0. Is that what we have here? No. For us, the number on the other side is 10. We need to make it 0. So let's subtract 10 on both sides of this equation. Then we're going to get 2m squared plus 1m minus 10 equals 0. All right, our equation is now in the correct form to be able to use the quadratic equation. We just have to identify our three coefficients as a, b, and c. So a is equal to 2, b is equal to 1, c is equal to negative 10. Notice that we have to consider the signs in order to determine the values of our coefficients. Okay, we're now ready to plug into our quadratic formula. Let's write the formula first. Because our variable is m for this problem, we'll start with m equals opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Whenever you write the quadratic formula, you should always write variable equals, and your fraction bar should go from the equals to the end of the radical. If it doesn't, then you risk making a mistake. I've seen many students write the quadratic formula this way, where only the radical is being divided by the 2a. That is not correct. That is not the correct quadratic formula. The fraction bar needs to go from equals all the way to the end of the radical. Okay, now we plug in. Here we go. So opposite b of course is 1, plus or minus the square root of b, which is 1, squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 10, all divided by 2 times a, which is 2. All right, now we simplify. This is just a negative 1 plus or minus square root of 1 squared is 1. Now I'm going to teach you a trick. Listen carefully. Whenever you're simplifying using the quadratic formula, find this little exponent of 2 and then count the number of hyphens that you see after it. 1, 2. If there's an even number of hyphens, then you're going to write plus a number. But if there's an odd number of hyphens, then you're going to write subtract a number. All right, so we've already dealt with the sign part of this, and now we just have to determine what's 4 times 2 times 10. 4 times 2 is 8, times 10 is 80. So I have 1 plus 80 underneath my radical, and that's all being divided by 4. Okay, continuing our problem. Now we have m equals -1 plus or minus the square root of 81 all divided by 4. Of course, the square root of 81 is 9, so we get -1 plus or minus 9 all divided by 4. And at this point, these two things are like. I want to combine them together. But the plus or minus symbol tells me that I have two different ways of writing it. One for the plus, one for the minus. So I get m equals -1 plus 9 all divided by 4, or -1 minus 9 all divided by 4. I need to calculate both of those. Let's start with the first one. -1 plus 9 is 8. So for the first piece, I get m equals 8 divided by 4. For the second piece, -1 minus 9 is -10. So I get m equals -10 over 4. Now reduce both fractions. 8 divided by 4 is 2. The greatest common factor of 10 and 4 is 2. And if I take out a 2 of both of those, it reduces my fraction and I get -5 over 2. So my final answer is m equals 2 or m equals -5 halves.